All right, ladies and gentlemen, Shazam. Let's do it. What is happening, subs, stalkers, and freaks, and welcome back to Dead Jester Circus. Full disclosure, I know next to nothing about Shazam. All I really know is that he's a superhero, and that's about it. So my review is going to be based solely on the movie itself, and not necessarily how faithful it is to its source material. But alright, let's get this magical mystery tour underway.
Daily Batson, I choose you. Say my name so my powers will become yours.
Shazam is the latest DC superhero movie, and it stars Zachary Levi, Asher Angel, and Mark Strong, and is directed by David Sandberg. Like I said before, I don't know much about Shazam, so going into this movie, I was really squarely on the fence, because even though the trailers made this movie look like it was going to be a lot of fun, I had a sinking feeling that it could all be just a farce as well. But I actually really liked this movie. And in fact, it might be my favorite DCEU movie so far. Sorry, Wonder Woman. And unlike Aquaman, this movie really doesn't outstay its welcome. It's well paced, and all the humor in the movie works for the most part. There are a few gags in there though that involve a mall Santa that at first are funny, but they kind of overplay them a little bit. But the chemistry between Billy, played by Asher Angel when he was little, and Zachary Levi when he's full grown as Shazam, and his kind of foster brother, played by Jack Grazer, the chemistry between them was just phenomenal. And yes, for those of you who may not know, Jack Grazer is the one who played Eddie in It, and holy shit, did he really hit a growth spurt in those 2 years. And I also really like Billy's interaction with the rest of his foster family. These to me were actually probably the real highlights of the movie. I thought the parents were great, I thought the little girl was really adorable, and they were just all really good, just really good characters. Especially though the parents. I loved his foster parents in this movie. They were a lot of fun. They were really funny. But all in all, it was just a fun ride. And you know, this is a comic book movie, and I think DC finally got the hint that we are allowed to have some fun in these movies. And these last films with Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and now Shazam perfectly illustrate that point. And they stand in stark contrast to a lot of those Nolan, Zack Snyder DC movies from a few years ago.
I'd like to purchase some of your finest beer, please.
But not only is this movie a lot of fun, it also has a lot of heart to it too. It's ultimately a movie about family and the yearning for love and acceptance, and really how that can drive people in good ways and bad ways. And early on we see how that really affects the villain, Dr. Savannah, played by Mark Strong. At the beginning of this movie, we see Dr. Savannah as a child, and we see him being picked on by his brother, and he's pretty much borderline being verbally abused by his father. And without giving away anything, this really, over the years, develops a complex in his mind where he feels like he needs to prove himself to his dad. And that sort of complex ultimately drives him towards evil and madness. But I really liked how they fleshed out the villain's backstory to this at the beginning of the movie, because showing us that, it makes us understand where he's coming from a little bit more. And to a degree, we can all sympathize with that, because what he's going through and that needing of acceptance and the feeling of having to prove oneself to one's parents, I think that's something we can all relate to. And the opposite of Dr. Savannah is Billy Batson, whose mother abandoned him as a child, and since then he's been kind of bouncing around from foster home to foster home, and he's kind of been on this never-ending quest to reconnect with his mother. And by the way, there is a scene where Billy does reunite with his mother, and it's a real gut punch. I really felt bad for his character there. After bouncing around from foster home to foster home, he finally lands at one that doesn't want to give up on him right away. And you know, at first he doesn't know how to handle that, but he eventually comes to the realization by the end of the movie that the family that he had been searching for this entire time was there in front of him. And you know, I dig that. I dig that this movie, while also being a comedy, it also has a lot of depth and a lot of heart to it. And that's something I really wasn't expecting from this, because the trailers really made this out like it was just going to be an out-and-out comedy. And I was pleasantly surprised that, yeah, there's a lot of emotional heart to this. But yeah, good job, DC. It's not often that I've said that recently.
Sorry about your window, but you're welcome for not getting robbed. Oh, hey, what's up? I'm a superhero.
Normally this would be about the point in time where I would go into my problems with the movie, but quite honestly, there isn't a lot that I have issues with. But the one real overall problem I do have with this movie is that I never really got invested in the overall stakes that were at play. And what I mean by that is, like, during the final fight at the climax of this movie, I never really got the sense of urgency that one should feel during that moment of the movie. Now, they did do a bit where Dr. Savannah is explaining himself and he's going on his big evil villain speech, but it was done as a gag, so you never really got to hear him explain what was going on or what he really was after. I guess maybe it's not that important, but to me it kind of is, because I wanted to understand a little bit more. And like I said, without that understanding, I just couldn't get fully invested in the third act of this movie. And it really just comes off as bad guys doing bad guy things because they're bad guys. So either his motivation wasn't made clear enough, or it was just really, really fucking weak. You can take your pick as to which. But before I do end this review, I do have to bring up the mid-credits scene. You know what? No, fuck that. I don't really need to talk about the mid-credits scene. Let's drop that motherfucking wing scale. Shazam is just a damn fun superhero flick that knows it doesn't have to take itself seriously all the time. And while it does stumble a bit in the third act, and the lack of a credible, strong enough goal for the villains weakens the overall investment in the final fight, its great characters and abundance of heart help it overcome those shortcomings. And what else is there to say? The movie is just a blast. A short and sweet review this week, because there really wasn't much to really talk about. The movie was just fun. It was really funny. Like I said, the third act stumbles a bit, but it's still a fun ride. And I encourage anybody who hasn't gone out to see it yet, go check it out. I think you'll really like it. But if you have seen Shazam and you agree or disagree with my sort of assessment on the movie, please post your comments below. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Adios. And GTFO.
You ain't got a reason why you
ain't subscribed.
I'm gonna kill your whole fucking family.
All right, now get your fucking ass out the car. Go on. Yeah.
Shit. Woo!